This is Lawrence Lotz, and welcome to the Wolf of Queen Street. Welcome back to the Wolf of Queen Street podcast series. Welcome back to the video or the audio series. But before we get started today, I just want to do a shout out to my sponsors. Lighthouse Financial are leading provider of financial solutions for the owners and property investors across New Zealand. They specialize in helping property investors grow their wealth via access to expert financial planning, mortgage funding, tax structures, and accounting advice. They take the complicated process of looking at property, wanting to invest, or just in your financial accounts at the end of the year, make it really simple. And as a person that uses Lighthouse Financial Services, I can tell you it is simple, it is easy, and it's an amazing team. And you can find them at lighthousefinancial.co.nz. But today I'm pretty pumped to have Hadley Nightingale on my show, the founder of NZ Property Buyers, someone that I've seen pop up on my social media sort of the last handful of months, running content out there about looking for property, helping people to find their next investment or their first home and so forth. And I wanted to bring Hadley onto the show and talk about what NZ Property Buyers is about and what they're providing to the New Zealand market that is different to maybe some other companies that are out there. So Hadley, welcome to the show.
Cool, Lawrence. Thanks for having me.
That's amazing. I said to Hadley, fun enough, off airs, I went down and as I always do is I do actually do some research on my guests, and I went and found NZ Property Buyers' website, and I had to read about what they're about. And very few times do I actually read off straight what a website says about a company, because I can write down a few notes and I can sometimes feel I can say it actually better. But it's so well written, Hadley. I don't know if it was yourself written this or someone else, or you got a copywriter to do it. But I just want to read you what NZ Property Buyers are about, and you can understand why I want to have this discussion. So it says, New Zealand Property Buyers is an agency with the buyer in mind, not the seller, the buyer. We represent the buyer through the purchasing process. The company was founded on the basis that there's a severe lack of representation in the real estate market for the buyer. I 100% agree with this. Every week we see people who are either buying their first home or have limited experience of the process going up against career professionals who know how to get the best out of for their vendors. Now, very simply, that is just, I see it every single day. It is so true out there. Someone looking to buy a property and so forth goes in and has no idea what they're doing. But on the other side, they've got all the support of the agent and everyone else trying to support the seller to get the most money. I'm guessing, Hadley, this is why you started up this company, to see if you could make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. It was something that I found when I first started buying property. I got some education. I got some people around me to teach me how to get going and how to grasp the concepts. And then as I started going out to open homes, spending time on the weekends, and you'd hear people talking to agents, and I think it's probably one of the biggest mistakes people make is they talk to real estate agents when they're buying homes. And I say that because they basically go, oh, look, I'm after this house. I've got a budget of 400,000. We like this part of the house. We don't like that. This is what we're going to do. And they lay all their cards out there. And so I go to these open homes and I'd hear people getting given advice that may or may not have been right, and then you hear people that have got no real idea what a place is worth putting in offers. And then as I got along the track a little bit, I got into the real estate industry some more, and you'd go into a real estate office and they go, the vendor was only after 400, but we sold it for 450. And the selling agent was doing their job, but it just really got under my skin that there was being, that was happening, and there was no representation on the buying side.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I can tell from my experience. I ran a flipping business, buying and renovating, selling a handful of years ago. We're going around close to 4 or 5 years ago. Did that for about 2 or 3 years. And I can tell you, because I'd done it all in one area, in one suburb, I became very well known with the real estate agents. But because I became very well known, is I got to see more things than the normal buyer, the buyer would. So I got given leeway in certain areas. I got given information that you normally wouldn't get, and that's the sort of stuff that would really drive where I knew my exact price points were. Fundamentally, the agents would do that because they knew I would buy, and if I bought from them, I was going to sell, and I'd likely need an agent to sell. So they would know if they could sell it to me, they could sell the same house twice in 2 to 3 months. So the information they were willing to share or guide me with was way different to someone else that was just coming off on a one buy situation. And it is so true in situations where, without, I would never name and stuff, but there was times where I was fully guided in how I should make a decision. Now, I was guided to my benefit in this situation. That doesn't mean it's everyone else's, because these agents wanted multiple sales. But this goes both ways. I was guided in a benefit way, and other people are guided in a negative way. And it's exactly what you said, Hadley.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I find it really interesting. That people get guidance on this from their Uncle Bob or their cousin at the barbecue, who says, look, I've bought one house in my life, this is what you should do, or this is what you shouldn't do, and this is what, or people talk to other people at work and go, what do you reckon? I'm looking at this house, what do you reckon it's worth? And you go, guys, you're spending large chunks of money here, and you're asking your workmate who's never bought a house either, what to do, or how you should go about it. It's intriguing.
It is. It totally is intriguing, because I love property so much, and it's a big passion of mine. I'll have friends or colleagues that don't know or have just been introduced, and we start talking into it. And it's funny because as soon as you actually can talk the right education, all of a sudden, if that person was interested in what you had to say, they'll turn around and go, "Okay, yep, I'm listening," and they're actually really engaged because they can see you telling them the right stuff. And that's the same sort of stuff what you provide in Hadley out there to the market. So obviously, just to anyone that's listening or watching at the moment, just to clarify, what Hadley does is a buyer's agent. So he helps people buy the property that they're looking for, either by consultant, the whole full process, or just where they need someone to come in from an education point or a leadership point of view. And depending, obviously, on that whole relationship, is what it sort of cost point will go to you. We won't go into the cost point because that's stuff you can chat to Hadley if you're interested. But that's what he does, and provide you with those guidance. Now, obviously, in the market, Hadley, we sit at the moment, is there's been massive changes around legislation, around taxes and everything else. And this sort of view of, I just released an episode a couple of days ago before we filmed this, of whether sort of property investment is still the way to go, actually, because of all these big things. So I can imagine people coming to you at the moment. The biggest thing they might be asking is about, okay, Hadley, I want you to find me investment property. And I can imagine the biggest thing that they mention is cash flow. How do we go about cash flow good, cash flow in the right way, whether they have the right understanding of cash flow education? I can imagine you have people coming to you and go, Hadley, we want to buy a house that has exceptionally good cash flow. And you go, how much cash flow do you want? And they go, I don't know. Okay, because they might not have that. So talk me through sort of cash flow focus at the moment around the market.
Sorry to interrupt the current show, but just to let you know, if you're enjoying what you've seen, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. So next time another episode comes out, you'll be able to see it first. Back to the show.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I get a lot from people is when I say, look, what are you looking for? I want a really good deal, and you go, awesome. Okay, what does that look like? Like a good deal. Well, like a good deal would look, and I mean the thing with it is it comes back to what you were saying earlier, is around the education, and it's a big part of what I do is sharing knowledge with people, and whether they decide to go with us or whether they decide not to, either ways, regardless, they've just got to leave knowing a little bit more than when they started. And so at the moment, with, like you're saying, the new tax changes and things like that, the cash flow side of the equation from an existing build house, because that's all we specialize in. We don't do new builds, and we don't sell anything. So our specialties in high yield, high capital growth properties and getting the combination of the two. But with the tax changes, it's really important that we need to be more cash flow focused to offset any of those tax implications if we're not doing huge renovations. And there's obviously that pillar there where you go one extreme and all you get yield, and you go the other extreme and all you get capital growth and the yield disappears. So it's about finding that balancing act, but having it in mind to go, right, this is what we're going to do. This is what phase 2 looks like. And there's just got to be that cash flow upside of whatever you're doing now.
So you mentioned at the moment, just quickly, before I want to go back to the point, phase 2. Talk to the people at the moment. How do you mean when you mention phase 2?
Yeah, so everything that I look at the moment has to have what I call phase 2. So we buy the house, or we buy the property, or we buy whatever we're buying looks what it looks like now. And one of the biggest things we find is people get so hung up with what a property looks like today. And it's why people lose a lot of good deals or pass them by, is because they can't see the opportunity that's in that phase 2. So is that the fact that we buy the house now that's at a lower yield, but we can turn it into 2 units? Is it the fact that we can shift the house on the section to put another house on there? So it's about that forward thinking and going, right, we might hold this for 12 months like it is, but step 2 of this process is going to allow us to do X and help us move forward.
No, that's great. It's great to show that, because, yeah, I totally agree with you. There's times where people would walk in and look at a place. You know, I've bought and I've looked at places that you couldn't pay me to, outside of buying it, step inside the house. And to a lot of uneducated people, or people that doesn't realize, would look at it and go, no, there's no ways I'm touching that. There's no ways I'm going to go through, and because they don't have that right education or the right understanding, where you would come in and talk them through from that second phase. You know, and there was also something interesting that Hadley said earlier, and we just had the joke about it, was, you know, what is a good deal? To any property investor, whether it's mom and pop, or to anyone that has the right education, if you go to them, what is a good deal, they should, and most times will be able to give you a number straight away off the back of the head. They would be able to go, hey, a good deal looks like this much cash flow per week is what I want to clear. And if you aren't able to say that or understand that straight away within 20 seconds, think about it. Okay, a good deal to me is $200 a week cash flow, or $400 a week cash flow, or I want to have gross yield at 8% or 9%. And if you can't answer that question straight off the bat, then it shows that there's something lacking, where you need the guidance from Hadley or anyone else, and that's in the market space, to be able to do that. Because people are like, oh, I want a good deal. I want to go buy a house where it just showed in the last 12 months it did 25% capital gain growth. And you go, oh, yeah, it's going to do 25% the next 12 months. No, it doesn't mean that. Yeah. Last 12 months doesn't mean it's the same thing in the next 12 months. Because a lot of people 100%. Look online and they go, oh, yeah, it means it's just going to replicate itself. It's going to copy itself and keep following forward. That's not the case. There's places that go up, there's places that go down. There's very few places that go down at the moment, but there is still places that are not as great as other places.
Yeah, 100%. I was just reading back through Tribe of Mentors, just to go off on a slight tangent, reading through Tribe of Mentors last night, and there was a quote in there, and I can't remember who it was by, but they said, if great opportunities get missed by a lot of people because they don't understand the detail. But if everyone could see great opportunities on the surface, they'd be gone before anyone knew about them. That's probably not the exact quote, but it was something along those lines.
Very simple. Yeah, I mean, I know people out there, and to anyone that's listening, that's thinking about if their first investment, going into it and stuff like that, and going, I can put my hand up. I'm sure Hadley can do it, and everyone else, and going, man, I look at someone else, and I've got people in my circle, and I look at and go, wow, that's an amazing deal. I wish I could have bought that place. Those little, and whether it's your first investment and so forth, those little golden goose eggs aren't like hen's teeth. They don't not exist. They're actually there all the time. It's just about the education and knowing how to get into them and what to do, as Hadley says, in phase 2 to try and achieve that. And I guess one of the biggest things, Hadley, around that is a big strategy of buying. What is the sort of main strategy that you would guide people, or we talk to people to? Because obviously people come to you and go, I want first investment, or I want my X investment, or I need help to find a home or a investment. I roughly want this good return, and and those discussions. And then I'm guessing the next sort of thing is talking about the strategy behind, also about buying that property as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think that the worst, one of the biggest mistakes again that we see people making is people go and spend a whole lot of time looking at property.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go, oh, I found this really great house, and then they go, yeah, I think it's in an okay area, and then they go, oh, but it won't cash flow, or I'm after a solely growth strategy, but it's in a really high yielding area. Really important to reverse engineer this and go, right, what strategy, what am I actually trying to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
Is it that I'm chasing cash flow? Is it that I'm chasing growth? Is it the combination of the two? Do I need to buy some existing property and then put some new builds into my portfolio to level things out? Where does the strategy sit in this? And then start looking at what areas you're going to look in, and then the properties that are going to fit those three. Because instead of looking at 20,000 properties, you've narrowed things down to a much smaller funnel, and you become a lot more targeted. So that's the key there in terms of working out what you're going to do. And then there's pockets around the country, because it's one of the things I get asked. So what areas are you buying for clients at the moment? And you go, well, I can tell you all the areas. I can tell you what I do. Yeah, everywhere. Wherever
Depends on the strategy, right?
Wherever there's a deal that's going to work for us, we'll go, provided there's the underlying infrastructure to support that. But it's the thing of, work out what you want to achieve, and then we'll work out where you're going to go.
Yep.
Not we'll work out the house and then hope everything else aligns with it. So you end up doing a whole lot of tail chasing.
There's nothing worse, again, from even my own experience and seeing it from friends, of going through a property or looking at a property, walking around going, I love this place, and then realizing that it has no value from an investment point of view. Whether your education was wrong in the old school, yes, I buy it in the best street and all the rest of it, and it doesn't cash flow now. Yeah, there's nothing worse than walking into a place and go, oh my goodness, this is perfect, and everything else. You walk outside and you work everything out, and then you're like, oh, you should know a lot of that guide points, or the pressure points where you want to lead yourself into before you even go to that. Because it's a big question a lot of people ask me around property. Like, Lawrence, how do you make decisions? From my own personal strategy, talking about now, how do I make decisions on what do I buy, what don't I buy, or what I look to buy? I mean, when I say buy, I don't buy, or I wish I could buy all the time. But I say I've got my strategies. Same what Hadley will show people. I've got a strategy that works for me and my family personally. Doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone else. And my strategy, I've got 5 criteria and stuff that I work through, and once that strategy spits out the other side, it gives me a calculation or a number, as I say. And I've got a box that has a range of where this sits in. And if this number sits in that box that my expectations are, then no matter what, I will be trying to buy that house, that property, that apartment, whatever it is for my strategy. I don't care if it doesn't have consent. I don't care if it's purple, pink, and it's broken and it's everything else. My whole system and my strategy behind it got me to that point that said, if everything comes through that funnel in this area, then you're going to try and actually do a deal with it. And I'm guessing, and fundamentally, this is exactly what you'll be doing, Hadley, with the buyers.
Yeah, it's probably, the two things I do: number one, purchase property, and second, become a counsellor. For some people around, and I say that jokingly.
Marriage counselor.
Yeah. I mean, my clients are fantastic. There's no two ways about that. But I mean, that's the thing, especially when it's your first, your first investment that you're buying, it's a big decision. And I remember the first property that myself and my partner at the time bought. It was in Oxford Street in Palmerston North. back when you could buy a house in Palmerston North, for the middle of Palmerston North, for 250 grand, and walked in the front door. The outside looked okay. It was a 1920s villa. Walked in there, stepped through the front door, and there was like incense burning. So they were trying to cover up the smell of the marijuana they've been smoking. And then the agent hadn't quite got to taking the drug paraphernalia off the windowsill. And there was mold, and my partner at the time was like, right, we're out of here. I'm gone. Rather than working out the numbers, going, hang on, let's work through this and see where we're going to end up. It turned out to be a fantastic investment and cost us about 35 grand to fix everything that needed to be fixed. But from an emotional perspective, was a case of what if we'd solely gone off the emotion? Yeah, what the hell are we doing here? It's just just crazy. But yeah, it's really important when we're looking at investment property. What do the numbers say? What are the factual statistical evidence that we have to support this? And if it works, let's buy it. If not, we'll move on to the next one. And if we haven't found it today, there'll be something else that pops up that'll fit that, and it might just take a little bit longer, but it's better that we buy the right property, because that's the other thing too. People go, I need a property now, and they buy one that doesn't tick all those boxes, and you end up running into trouble with that as well.
Yeah, I'm a bit when I want to get in there as well myself, and but luckily, because I've got these rule sets, it has to go through that now, in the sense, be able to rush. So if I'm in the opportunity to be able to buy, I'm like, yes, I want to get one today, tomorrow, this week. I got to make it happen. But luckily, because I've got this right strategy and education, no matter what, and even my wife, I've spoken about this before on the show. We've got the 5 rules. She'll go, what does the rule say? Does it work? And as long as I can say, yep, it shows, yeah, it is, yeah, it's working. She goes, then it's fine. If I go, it's close, she's like, it's not working. Close doesn't work. It's got to fit.
Yeah.
So totally. But Hadley, something else you spoke about just in the beginning a little bit. You touched on. You talk about stage to it at the moment. So obviously, someone comes to you looking to buy or want your guidance. We spoke about looking at the cash flow and what that is about. Talking about the strategy of buying, but there's obviously something else. There's a strategy of buying, but then there's also another layer to it, and it's sort of the creativity around what we call the stage 2 of the buy itself, of what it is now and what I'm going to move it towards or transition it towards as well, from a property point of view, whether it's renovation, subdivision, a unit, and so forth. There's a whole big piece about that a lot of people also forget about, that forms part of this circle of buying an investment property.
Yeah, so the creativity side of it is becoming more and more important as to how we're looking at things, and imagination in terms of how things can. It comes back to the opportunity thing that we were talking about before. When you have a trained eye, or when you've got an experienced eye, that you can look at something and go, from previous experience and the previous deals that I've done, and what I know from the local council in the area, I can get away with, or I can turn this house into 2 units. We know that with the land size that we're going to get, at least 2 houses onto this property. And so it really comes down to the foresight in terms of what you can do with a house, but also too, I think people, from a negotiation standpoint, people get so hung up on price. Too, and sometimes it's really good to take a step back and find out, and it's probably one of the most bantered around comments are, ask the agent why the vendor's selling. You go to any education person will say, if you talk to an agent, always ask them why the vendor's selling. Most of the time they won't tell you exactly what the case is, but it's about finding out those terms around that, because sometimes terms for people can be far more important from a creativity side of things than what price itself. So to give an example, around Christmas time, we had a place under contract. The vendors wanted it settled by Christmas. So we were like 35 grand less than another offer that they got through the door. But because we had 5 days to get finance sorted and then we could settle in 5 days, the vendor was much more happy with that. So they had their money and they could get going at Christmas time, rather than the other person's offer that was, we want vacant possession and 2 months later. So creativity from the what can we do with it perspective, but also too from the negotiation standpoint as well.
Yeah, it's so true. Yes, asking the agent why they're selling and so forth will very rarely get you all the information, but sometimes it does also give you a slip up, or does give you a little bit of information. Like you said, people want to be out earlier. Therefore I can utilize that to my power. You've got a great deal because you could settle quicker. I've spoken to agents before and they've gone, so I've looked at a property and it has the potential. This is before the sort of the crazy boom the last 2 years. So the investment game wasn't as mainstream as it is now. Called mainstream. It's always been there though. So I looked at a property, and to me, it looked like it had subdivision, it had development potential, and all the rest of it. And the deal was still good originally on the buy. So I spoke to the agent, and for some reason, just having a long chat, and we're talking about it and everything else, she let it slip in the sense of that the current owner bought it for the same exact reasons, but found out he couldn't do it. And then I was like, okay, great. So therefore, this house is off the list because he had done all that work. Doesn't mean, look here, that I couldn't take it all at that face value, but everything that was said and told to me, I could respect. So sometimes asking those questions will lead some golden nuggets out there as well. And as you said, the creativity of when you're buying something, what you want to do with it, subdivide, putting a unit on, and everything else. Now, I've got a question, Hadley, around this at the moment, and I can imagine some of you buyers do it. Obviously, we've got this new tax changes that's going on at the moment that taxes, so I'm just going to put it real simple. It taxes simply existing dwellings, and it doesn't tax new builds. Now, I can imagine there's buyers that come into you at the moment that are going, okay, Hadley, find me the quarter acre property. I'm saying quarter acre, and I almost want to laugh because they don't really exist anymore. But let's say the quarter,
like unicorns.
Let's say the quarter acre property, so I can put something new on the section as well, because I can imagine that's something big. They're going, how do I put something not just from a renovation, but I put something new, so at least on one side of the spectrum I can claim tax, on the other side I can't. Yeah.
So I mean, I suppose it's with what we do. We do everything bespoke for our clients. So it's not one size fits all. And I suppose it's I also use Matt and the guys at Lighthouse for everything else I do as well. So my answer to that is that in terms of tax stuff, go and talk to them, because they'll sort you out and point you in the right direction that you need to go in. And then in terms of how we look at things for what we're purchasing, it really comes down to site layout, knowing where services are, how cost effective that the new developments going to be, as part of that due diligence phase to go and purchase. To go and look at that phase too. Does that sort of answer the question?
Yeah, it totally does, Hadley. So I know I'm putting him on the spot here because, like he says, he doesn't do the new boards area, but it's just to push him to that point. Is there anything else at the moment, sort of as we're coming to the end of today's show and everything else, is there anything else from yourself or from the business New Zealand property buyers that you want to let the listeners or the watchers know about, something to think about or consider at the moment in the market?
Yeah, a couple of things. I'm going to put a caveat on everything bad I've said about real estate agents tonight. They're awesome people, and I've got a lot of really good friends that are selling agents. So I do really like them, and they make my job. They make everyone's life easier. I suppose the second thing too is that be careful where you take your advice from. And that's from the perspective that I get told all the time that people can't do stuff. And I think one of the most important things you can do is take advice from people that tell you how you can do it, not give you the reasons why you can't.
Yeah.
And if there for some reason is that it's illegal or there is no way to do it, then those people are going to go, hey, look, you can't do it like that because of this, 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 and this. But have you thought about doing it or doing X this way to get you some returns rather than a blanket no? So the source of your advice and experienced people will get you a lot further than your uncle at the barbecue.
I love that. I do love the shout out to the real estate agents. I got a good few friends that are real estate agents, and we always have a go at each other. So you got to save that relationship because fundamentally we need them. We both need them at the end. So Hadley, where can anyone that's loved what you had to say, interested in having a discussion and chat, where can they find you on social media, or where's the best way to reach out to you?
So probably best way is through Facebook, just page Hadley Nightingale. The other places at our website, newzealandpropertybuyers.co.nz or newzealandpropertybuyers.com. Either will get you there, and feel free to give me a call or send me an email. All my details are on the website or on our Facebook page, and more than happy just to have a chat and see where things go from there.
Awesome, Hadley. And as always, the details will be in the description of wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast. You'll be able to find Hadley's details there. And it's thanks again, Hadley, for coming on. It's such a cool thing, helping out people out there that needs the guidance or the education to how to get into the investment game from a buying point of view and making sure they get the best of what they need to do and not from the other side of the table, the seller gets the best for them as well. So, and it's a tug of war, but it's only fair that there's a tug on both sides, right? Otherwise, it's a little bit lopsided. And what Hadley does is he just balances that out a little bit better than everything else. So thanks so much for coming again on the show. And I hope everyone else is taking something good away from the show today, just a further education. And if you have, as always, as asked, just hit that subscribe or like button. Make sure you share it out or send it out to some friends that might take something from it. And it always, at the end of the day, as I say, stay safe out there at the moment. And stay beautiful. Until next time, see ya.